Next clean page in our math notebook, we are ready to take today's math notes. So we have been talking about dividing decimal numbers, right? Yesterday we rounded in order to estimate. Today, why are we talking? Today we are dividing by a one-digit whole number. So 6.4 divide by a one-digit whole number. And today's date, 11/17/20. Go ahead and get started with writing that. 6.4 divide by a one-digit whole number, 11/17/20. And then give me a thumbs up on your desk when you are ready. Thank you, Will. What? We completely skipped lesson 3. Yes, we did. Allison, thank you. Thank you, Emmy, and Michael, and Layla. And Jack P, and Senna, and Jack L, and Elena, and Grayson, and Yosius, and Mackenzie, and Philip, and Addie, and Chanel. All right, are we ready to move on? Is there anyone who's not ready? Okay, so we're going to get right into a practice problem, you guys. So dividing by a whole number, and then I put the problem that we are going to be working with. So 5 6800 divided by 4. Divided by a whole number, 5 6800 divided by 4. How's that? Okay. Give me a thumbs up when you have this written down. Thank you, Michael, and Will, Elena, Senna, Emmy, Frankie, Will, Addie, Allison, Layla, Eosius, Mackenzie, Jack P, Jack L, Senna, it stands for the word number, so yes. Or you can write out the word number, whatever you want to do. Awesome. So 5th grade, I am going to tell you that when we divide by a whole number, or when we divide decimals, it's a lot easier than you think it's going to be. We're going to be practicing today with dividing by a whole number. So we're not going to have a decimal divided by another decimal. We're going to have a decimal number being divided by a whole number that's only one digit. Then we're going to practice taking a decimal and dividing it by a whole number that has 2 digits. Then we will look at dividing a decimal by a decimal. So we're easing our way into that. Are we ready to move on? Yes. Okay. So we have 3 steps when it comes to dividing by a whole number. Okay? It's a little different when we divide by a decimal. But when we divide by a whole number, our first step is to set up the problem. So step 1, set up the problem. Step 1, set up the problem. Philip, we're taking notes. Put it away. Thank you. Thank you, Elena, Senna, Grayson, Layla, Allison, Emmy, Jack L, probably around 10. I see a few people finishing up. I'll give you another moment. Guys in the back, voices should be off. Thank you, Yosius. All right, so 5th grade, since we're dividing, when we set up the problem, it looks like this. Since we're dividing, this is how we set up our problem. So the number we're dividing goes inside. The number we're dividing by goes on the outside. So remember, we call the number we're dividing the dividend. The number we're dividing by is the divisor.
This one we still have to make sure that the decimal point still lines up. The numbers don't matter. Actually, no.
Thank you.
I know.
Awesome. So, step 1, set up the problem. Has everyone set up their problem?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Make sure your mask is covering your nose and your chin. Just a reminder. I see a few that aren't. Okay, so then step 2, ignore the decimal and divide. Ignore the decimal and divide. That means once you write down step 2, go ahead and rewrite the problem and solve it. I already did. All right, here. I'll let you do it because I don't want to reveal step 3 yet. So once you've written down step 2, ignore the decimal and divide, you're going to rewrite this underneath step 2, but you're going to actually solve it this time. Okay? So reset up the problem under number 2, but actually solve it. And make sure you leave space above it so that you can put the answer on top, like we do. And then I'll show you what I got. Thank you, Yosius. And we'll see if we got the same thing. So step 2, ignore the decimal and divide. Similar. You ignore the decimal when you multiply.
When you do the answer, is it the same by multiplying?
We're going to talk about what step 3 is. We'll talk about the decimal in step 3.
Just like when you're doing this, adding, or you're dividing it, or just
So you're dividing. So remember we add from 4 to 5. And then 4 times 1 is 4. Ready to rock? All right, so you guys, when you ignored the decimal and divided, this is what you should have gotten. Is that what you got?
You should have got a paper thing with you?
No. That's covering up step 3.
I know.
Ready to rock?
Ready to roll.
All right, Phil, put your book away, please. So when we ignore the decimal and we divide, you should have ended up with 142 at the top, right?
Yep.
All right. Because 4 goes into 5 once. 4 times 1 is 4, so we subtract 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. Then we bring down our 6 for 16. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16, so we subtract 16 and we get 0, but we still have the 8. So when we bring down the 8, 4 goes into 8 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8, so we subtract 8 and we wind up with 0. Now, step 3 is the decimal. We ignored the decimal and we divided. What you need to do for step 3, and write down step 3 first, raise the decimal straight up into the quotient. So, if my decimal is here, I raise it straight up into the decimal, or into the quotient, and it is now there.
It's bad if you don't put it in.
Yes. So, 5th grade, is it important to make sure that your digits are lining up in your quotient?
Yep.
Yes, because if I accidentally had my 4 above the 5, then suddenly I would have 14 and 2/10, which is a very different number, right? Yeah, 1 and 42 hundredths then would be our answer. So you just raise the decimal straight up, and that is your answer. Is that a little easier than you thought it would be? Okay, now 5th grade, remember, this is what we do when we're dividing by a whole number. When we divide by a decimal, it will be a little different, but still it will be a little easier than you think it will. Since this is not a word problem, we do not have a unit. If you would like to circle your answer up top, you can. I'm going to circle my answer. Now we have some practice. Yes, Mackenzie.
When we divide by decimals,
Yes.
are we going to do the same thing we do in multiplication, where we see like there's 2 and there's 2 and then you put
It's a little different from that. It's a little different from that. It's a little different. Okay, now we're going to have practice problems. So go ahead, practice. Yes, you should write step 3 off to the side. So step 3. No, I think there's only, 3? Yeah, there's only 3. Step 3, raise the decimal straight up into the quotient. 3. Okay. Okay. Quotient. And did you get practice written down? Awesome. All right, are we ready for our practice problems? Are we ready for our practice problems?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Ready to rock? I am waiting for voices. Jack L, please turn around. Okay. These are our 3 practice problems. So, number 1, you will have to rewrite them the way that you're supposed to solve them. Let's practice with that. So number 1, 33 and 8/10 divided by 4. Number 2, 35 and 5/10 divided by 5. And number 3, 1 and 44 hundredths divided by 9. Now, do I have these written to where you can immediately solve them? No, you're going to have to rewrite them. So 5th grade, make sure you're skipping a line underneath where you wrote them, because our quotient goes on top of where we set up the problem. So make sure you leave a line for your quotient, okay? So I would set it up right here. I'm going to go ahead and set them up too. So you can immediately start to solve them. I'll know you're ready to correct when I see you're waiting with a thumbs up, or you quietly reading, writing, or drawing. I think so. I'll double check. Yeah, they should. I'll double check for you though. Oh, there might be something I'm going to show you. So solve them to the best of your ability, and then we're going to look at them together, okay? Yeah, you guys, number one, I'll show you what you do. Are you on number one? Yeah, are you on number one? Yeah, like, how far are you? If you're getting stuck on number one, I'd like you to skip it because I'm going to show you what we do when we look at it together. I want you to make sure you work on 2 and 3. Okay. I'm going to give you another moment or so. Yep, and that is the best one on there. So you should be at your desk. You should be at your desk. Thank you to those of you who are being patient. But our voices should still be off because we still have some friends working on the last one, the last practice problem. Or yes, and you could ready to rock. Ready to rock. All right, I would like everyone back in their seats, or if you're at a standing desk, back to standing at your desk. We are going to look at 1, 2, and 3 together. Now, I purposely picked these 3 problems because we're practicing a few different things in them, starting with the first one. So I'm going to grab my navy pen because that shows up really well for you guys. Okay. So, are we ready to correct? Are we ready to correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's start. Voices off, please. Thank you. Will, you should be at your desk. All right. So, we ask ourselves, Can 4 go into 3? No. Can 4 go into 33?
Yes.
How many times? 8 times. So I'm going to put the 8 above that second 3. Will. Waiting for you. 4 times 8 is 32. So I would subtract 32. 33 minus 32 is 1. I bring down my 8. How many times can 4 go into 18? 4 times. So I'm going to put my 4 up top. 4 times 4 is 16. So I subtract 16. I wind up with 2. Now, 5th grade, usually we would stop here and put remainder 2 up at the top, right? Now, since we are working with decimals, if we look at our number here, 33.8, we're already to the right of the decimal, right? What imaginary number is always at the right of our decimal? 0.
Wait, what?
So, you guys, when you work with decimals and you're dividing, if you get to this point, you add a 0 onto the number you're dividing and you bring it down. Remember, it's an equivalent decimal. It's an equivalent number, Michael. We could add as many zeros onto 33.8 as we want, or we need in this case. No, this is a good thing. This is something new we're learning. You add a 0 onto the end, bring it down. So if you didn't do that, I'd like you to do it. I added a 0 onto the end and I brought it down to my 2. Now suddenly, my 2 has become 20. Can 4 go into 20?
Yes, 5 times.
How many times? 5 times. So then I put my 5 above the 0. I subtract 20 because 4 times 5 is 20. I get 0. Have you guys noticed that whenever I draw or I set up my division problems, I always let it hang over the number more? Because I am so used to being able to add zeros because I learned this. And so if you've ever noticed that when Miss E sets up her division problems, I always go further over in case I need to add zeros. Yeah.
Wait, so there
This
can't be a
only
remainder?
works. What?
It can't be a remainder?
Well,
what we're doing?
there are technically some numbers that could go on forever and ever. But yeah, technically, you can get it to where there's no remainder.
That makes so much sense now because I remember
Yep.
years ago when my brother was in fifth grade.
He was
He
doing
was
this.
talking about this and I'm just like,
What? Yes. So now 5th grade, where does my decimal go?
It goes
Between,
in between the 8 and the 4.
yep, it goes straight up between the 8 and the 4. Yep. 8 and 45 hundredths.
Yeah, not thousands.
Okay.
millions.
So, 5th grade, eyes on me for a second.
Oh.
Eyes on me for a second. Eyes on me for a second. Whenever you're working with a decimal, you can always add zeros to the right of it. You can't add it between the numbers that are already there, but you can always tack it onto the end. If you wind up with like a 2 and you're like, well, 4 can't go into 2, add on that 0 and suddenly you can keep going. Now, my rule of thumb is if you do that 3 times and you still are getting a remainder, then you stop. Then you stop, okay? Nope. Nope. If you add on 3 zeros and you still haven't gotten a clean answer with a 0 at the end, then you stop and what you have at the top is your answer, okay? Yes.
Every single time you have the division problem, decimal, the
Mhm.
division problem,
You can add a 0 on.
That would be like 1 in
there's a
100.
remainder if you add a 0.
And then you bring it down. Yep. Now, 5th grade, could we technically do that with whole numbers?
Yeah.
If you were dividing like 150 by 8, 150, you could do 150.0, and then suddenly it's a decimal and you can add more zeros, right? Just something to think about. For this, we'll already just start with decimals. All right. Does number 1 make sense, what we did? Okay.
I'm so.
Now let's look at number 2. So number 2, can 5 go into 3?
No.
Can 5 go into 35?
Yes.
7 times. 5 times 7 is 35, so I'm going to subtract.
And then 1.
35. Hey, 5th grade. I don't know why we're talking, but it needs to stop.
0.
35 minus 35 is 0. Bring down my 5. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 times 1 is 1. Or, sorry, 5 times 1 is 5. So I subtract 5. I wind up with 0. My decimal goes straight up between the 7 and the 1. So 7 and 1, 10. How do we feel about number 2? How do we feel about number 2? Awesome. Then we get to number 3. So, number 3, can 9 go into 1? No. Can 9 go into 14? It can go in one time. So then we subtract 9. 14 minus 9 is 5. Bring down our 4. How many times does 9 go into 54? 6 times. 9 times 6 is 54. So I'm going to subtract 54. My decimal goes up top. Is this my answer? 5th grade. If this was your answer, you were missing one thing. We cannot start our decimal number with a decimal. We need a 0. Because this is how we write our numbers. Yep. It just, well, it represents, it's kind of like, if I were to see 0.16, I would think you were missing a number in the ones place. Okay? So by putting the 0, you're letting me know, no, Missy, there should not be a digit in the ones place. Okay? All right. Ready to rock. I want you to close your eyes and put your head down. Voice is off. Close your eyes or put your head down. Or both. Close your eyes. You're going to anonymously show me how you're feeling about this. So I should see all eyes closed. Should not be drawing. I want you to think about how you're feeling when it comes to having a decimal number and dividing it by a one-digit whole number. Then go ahead and show me on your hand 1 through 5. How are you feeling with this? How are you feeling about this? How are we feeling about this? Hands down. Hands down. Hands down. Go ahead, open your eyes. All right, nice job today. I'm going to tell you what your homework is. Please open. All right, I'll wait for you. Why don't you go ahead All right. You are going to open your workbook to page 323, 324, 323 and 324. Ready to rock. Are you able to open your workbooks without talking? Then please do so. 323 and 324. Jack P at your desk, please. All right, so on 323 and 324, you are going to circle number 2, number 7, number 10, number 14, and number 16. And I'm going to say it one more time. You should have circled number 2, number 7, number 10, number 14, and number 16. I'm going to give you a little bit of work time. What should our volume level be during this time, 5th grade? It should be a 0. go ahead, get started. I'm going to open up the blinds because it can be hard on our eyes when it says start. Thank you. I will turn on work music real quick for you too. Nice job.